The business understanding workstream, the why. Before the first line of code is written, before any data is cleaned or models are trained, the true beginning of an AI project lies in a conversation, a deliberate pause to ask, why are we doing this? This is the moment when stakeholders gather around the same table, not to discuss algorithms, but to share frustrations, unmet needs, and untapped opportunities. The air is filled with ideas and uncertainties. A business sponsor might speak of declining customer retention. A domain expert might reveal a process so manual it slows everything down. And the AI project manager, calm and clear, asks the most important question of all. What are we truly trying to solve? There is no rush here. The team wrestles with definitions. What does success look like? For whom is this solution intended? Why is this the right moment to act, and what happens if we don't? These aren't abstract questions, they are the blueprint for everything that follows. A good framing of the problem becomes the project's North Star. It keeps data scientists focused, engineers aligned, and stakeholders confident. But a vague or poorly scoped goal? That's how time is lost, budgets balloon, and models miss the mark. At the heart of this workstream are key roles: the AI project manager, who keeps vision grounded in feasibility; the business analyst, who translates business needs into structured objectives; the product owner, who never loses sight of the end user; and the domain expert, whose knowledge of the field brings context no model could infer on its own. Their skill sets go beyond the technical. They know how to speak with executives in one breath and data engineers in the next. They can estimate not just return on investment, but the cost of doing nothing. They understand that introducing AI is not just a technical challenge, it's a change management journey. Together, they make 4 defining decisions that shape the entire project: how the problem is framed, what success will be measured by, what constraints must be honored, and how budget and impact will be balanced. This is where the future of the AI solution is born, not in servers or code repositories, but in shared understanding. When done right, this workstream becomes the foundation of trust, alignment, and clarity that every successful AI project stands upon. The data workstream, the what. After defining the problem, we now turn to its raw material, the data. If AI is the engine, then data is the fuel. But raw fuel, unfiltered, unrefined, won't fly a rocket. Before anything intelligent can be built, the team must first understand what they're working with. Enter the data experts. The data architect surveys the landscape like a cartographer, mapping out the known and unknown data territories. Which systems house the data, how often they update, and who owns them. The data engineer steps in like a mechanic, ready to build pipelines and clean out the sludge. The data steward watches for integrity, lineage, and consistency. And the privacy officer? They stand guard, ensuring every byte of personal data is handled with care and within the law. This phase is less glamorous than model building, but far more revealing. You're not training models yet. You're confronting the truth of your organization's digital reflection. The team encounters missing values and outliers that hint at process gaps. They wrestle with duplicated records, legacy databases, and mysterious columns labeled temp_final_final 2. Some data looks promising. Other datasets are riddled with noise. And still others spark concern. Are we collecting this ethically? Is there bias buried in this field? Will GDPR or AIPM be breached if we move forward? Every decision made here has weight. Which data sources should be brought into scope, and which ones left out? What quality threshold must be met before modeling begins? Is the data fair, balanced, and privacy compliant? And just as important, where might external data help enrich what we already have? This is the messy middle. It's where dreams of AI collide with legacy systems in reality. But it's also where trust is built. When done right, the data workstream lays the foundation for everything that follows. It's not about finding perfect data. It's about knowing exactly what you're working with, and what that means for the intelligence you're about to build. The modeling workstream, the how. This is where the algorithm awakens. The groundwork has been laid. The problem is clearly defined, the data painstakingly gathered and refined. Now, the lab lights flicker on. The modeling phase begins, not with certainty, but with hypotheses. Not with answers, but with carefully constructed questions aimed at the unknown. The data scientist enters first, sleeves rolled up, notebook open, hunting for signal in the noise. They craft features, subtle combinations of variables that might capture the essence of human behavior or market shifts. Beside them, the machine learning engineer builds the scaffolding to run experiments at scale. The researcher brings academic rigor, challenging assumptions and introducing novel approaches. And in the background, the model risk analyst peers over it all, ready to challenge what seems too good to be true. This phase is not linear. It is iterative. It is experimental. Algorithms are tested like suspects in a mystery novel: linear regression, decision trees, XGBoost, random forest, neural networks. Each has its strength. None is the universal answer. Some perform brilliantly, until they're tested on new data. Others surprise. Many fail. But failure is not the end here, it's feedback. Every result, even the poor ones, teaches the team something about the data, the domain, the assumptions baked into the model. And yet, performance metrics, F1 scores, precision, recall, are not the only targets. Here, accuracy is not the whole truth. The team must also ask, is the model fair? Can we explain it to a regulator? Will it behave sensibly when the world shifts slightly beneath its feet? Techniques like SHAP and LIME help illuminate the black box, offering windows into how predictions are made. These aren't just nice-to-haves. In regulated industries, explainability is the line between trust and liability. Critical decisions are made every day. What kind of model sets the baseline? When do we switch from simple to sophisticated? How do we measure success and failure? Where is bias hiding, and how do we mitigate it before it causes harm? And how do we ensure that what works today can be reproduced tomorrow, by another team, or even another company? This is not just data science. This is the search for reliable, responsible intelligence, coded into algorithms, tested against reality, and refined through craft and care. The integration workstream, the where. A model in a notebook is just an idea. A model in production, that's when it starts changing the business. This is the handoff zone. The lab coats give way to engineers in hoodies, working across time zones, building pipelines at scale. Here, the MLOP's engineer steps up, not just to deploy, but to operationalize. The DevOps lead ensures the infrastructure is resilient, secure, and elastic. The backend developer stitches the AI logic into the backbone of enterprise systems, whether it's a customer-facing app, an internal dashboard, or an automated fraud detection engine. And the QA, test engineer watches it all, ensuring nothing breaks when scale becomes real. This isn't a side project anymore. This is product territory. The model, once fragile and experimental, now becomes wrapped in APIs, versioned, containerized, and deployed. It becomes a living service, one that needs monitoring, alerting, error handling, and compliance. It must respond in milliseconds. It must behave predictably even as the real world shifts around it. Integration is not just deployment. It's orchestration. They decide, where will this model live? In a cloud-native Kubernetes cluster? On the edge? Inside a legacy CRM that still speaks SOAP? How will we monitor its health? For latency spikes? Prediction drift? Data pipeline failures? When and how will it be retrained? Automatically? On a schedule? Triggered by performance thresholds? And most importantly, will humans stay in the loop? Or will the model act autonomously, making decisions at speed and scale? This workstream is where ambitions meet architecture. It's the difference between a promising proof of concept and a scalable AI capability. Because real impact doesn't happen in notebooks. It happens in the wild. The ethics and governance workstream, the should. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. This is the quietest room in the AI project, but perhaps the most consequential. No flashing dashboards. No cutting-edge code. Just a persistent, clear-eyed question. Is this the right thing to do? Here, the AI ethics officer walks alongside innovation, not to slow it down, but to anchor it in reality. The responsible AI lead builds the scaffolding for trust, guardrails, audit trails, fallback plans. And the legal and compliance expert keeps one eye on the regulatory horizon, the other on the social contract. They aren't blockers, they're protectors. They review not just what the model does, but what it might do, under stress, under misuse, or in the hands of bad actors. They plan for edge cases, ethical dilemmas, and unintended harms. They craft policies no one notices, until something goes wrong. And when it does, these are the people who ensure your organization can say, "We were ready. We were responsible." They ask, is the model explainable to a non-technical decision maker? Where do we draw the ethical line, even if the law hasn't yet? Who gets notified if the model drifts into bias? What do we tell our customers, and what do we owe them? And perhaps the most difficult of all, if things go wrong, how do we roll it back? And how do we do it without breaking trust? This is not just about compliance. It's about conscience. It's about designing AI that doesn't just work, but deserves to work. This is the voice in the room saying, yes, it's technically possible, but should we press deploy? The change management workstream, the so what? If nobody uses the model, it's just math on a shelf. This is where the human story begins. The algorithm is ready. The dashboards sparkle. The deployment is complete. But if no one logs in, if no one trusts the insights, if no one changes what they do, then what was it all for? Enter the organizational change manager. Their job is not to code or analyze, but to listen. To translate fear into confidence, confusion into clarity. Alongside them, the training and enablement lead begins crafting a journey, not just a manual. And the UX designer steps in, not just to make it look good, but to make it make sense. Together, they ask, how will this feel to the person on the other side of the screen? They map the onboarding experience. They host town halls, create explainers, and run demos not in developer speak, but in everyday language. They design experiences that make people want to engage. And they ask the toughest, most important question of all. So what difference does this model actually make to the claims adjuster, the underwriter, the customer service representative? If the answer isn't clear, no one will care. So they make it clear. They show not just the how of the model, but the why, in terms that land in hearts, not just in heads. They anticipate resistance, not as an obstacle, but as a signal. They map it. Address it. Learn from it. They gather feedback in loops, not lines, because change is not a launch, it's a conversation. They define success not by model precision, but by adoption metrics. Usage rates. Behavior shifts. Real business outcomes. Because in the end, the best AI isn't just powerful, it's embraced. And that only happens when someone, somewhere, says, this makes my work better, I trust it. I'll use it again. The project spine, AI project management. Holding it all together, with nerves of steel and eyes on the outcome. In the complex anatomy of an AI initiative, with its racing data streams, algorithmic breakthroughs, ethical debates, and shifting stakeholder moods, there is one constant. One spine that keeps it all upright, aligned, and moving forward. That's the AI project manager. They don't write code. They don't tune hyperparameters. But they are in every room that matters. They run the stand-ups and the retrospectives. They track dependencies across business, data, and tech teams. They ensure the gates are reviewed, the milestones met, the risks surfaced before they become regrets. When the data workstream hits a privacy snag, they're already on a call with legal. When the modeling team needs compute power, they've negotiated with procurement. When the executive sponsor wants progress in plain English, the AIPM translates complexity into confidence. They aren't chasing tasks, they are orchestrating trust. They hold the roadmap like a compass, adjusting the direction when conditions shift. They know when to escalate and when to protect the team's focus. They manage the temperature of the room, balancing ambition with feasibility, speed with responsibility. And more than anything, they ensure that the work being done, across every stream, by every hand, stays tethered to purpose. To value. To the original, why? Because in AI projects, it's not just the smartest model or the cleanest dataset that defines success. It's whether the whole system moves forward, together. And the AI project manager? They're the spine holding that system tall. An AI project is not a model. It is a symphony. Each workstream plays a part. Each role brings a skill. Each decision builds momentum or blocks progress. If you're leading or funding AI, know the anatomy. Know the hands behind the curtain. Because real impact isn't made by algorithms alone. It's made by the team that dares to build them together.